Tanche and Tawau Tutlamon, and welcome to the Indigenous Women's Health Talk. My name is Carly, and I'm the Indigenous Women's Health Coordinator here at ONWA. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a really great knowledge sharing session today, and we were able to partner up with our guest speaker while we were thinking about December and how that for so many of us, that can bring up a variety of emotions. And as we're approaching our holiday season and the new year, we were hoping to introduce some new ideas to you today. Ideas around caring for ourselves and for those that we love. So maybe in the past, you've tuned into an Indigenous Women's Health Talk and shared some of the information that you learned that day with your friends or your family, and we're hoping to be that knowledge and be that event for you again today. So as I said, we're hoping to introduce maybe some new ideas and bring some moments of well-being and calm into your daily life during this next month and into this holiday season. Before we begin, I would just like to let everybody know that I put down some tobacco for us so that, and for all of us that are gathering here today, for those of you out there joining virtually, and just so that we can start our event off in a good way. So, Marcy and Gwich, Nyalwe to everyone here. I also really quickly just want to mention about our survey that we have every month, and we will be posting it frequently throughout today's event in the chat box. And that survey link will be active for the next 5 days for those of you who are maybe viewing this later on. So that survey will include questions about requests for future events, future Indigenous Women's Health Talks. And we really appreciate all the feedback that we've received over these last few months. So we do read every one of those, and to show our appreciation, we always have a gift every month for all the surveys that we receive. Otherwise, the surveys are anonymous unless you decide to leave us your contact info, and then we will put your name in for that draw for anybody who's living in Ontario. So thank you again for everyone who will leave a survey feedback for us. And let's move on to our event. So today's Indigenous Women's Health Talk is Breath as Medicine, a two-eyed seeing approach to breath and healing. And with us is Tyler Huston, who is a professional breathing coach, founder of Breath Control Training, and Therapy. And Tyler is a first responder paramedic, an addictions nurse, respiratory specialist, along with many other specialties. And he's joining us from British Columbia to share his teachings with us today. Thanks so much, Tyler, for joining in and helping us out.
Thank you, Carly. It's my privilege to be here today and to spend some time having a conversation with you and with everyone else out there around breathing and around how we can use breath as medicine for many different ways, especially at this time of year. And as Carly mentioned, this is a time of year when I think we need it the most. Just this, it's the darkest time of year, and it's a time of year where we, are able to turn inwards a little bit more, and where we can, focus on putting those roots down and really nurturing ourselves. And breath works as a wonderful tool, wonderful medicine to give us that nourishment during these times. So yes, I'm excited to be here and to have this conversation, and just want to emphasize that this is a conversation. So please feel absolutely free, anyone out there, as we go through. If you have any questions or thoughts, or if you'd like to join in and jump in on the conversation, I would really encourage that. So you can type in to the chat box as we go along. And that's very welcome. That's where the learning comes from, is, if there's anything specific you'd like to ask about or inquire as we go through. We will have some time at the end that we will talk as well and close up in a time for questions and thoughts. But just really want to encourage along the way to throw things in the chat box as we go through as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler, for saying that. We have CJ and we have Jordis in the background who are helping us out and monitoring all those chats, and we'll pass those questions on to you as they come in.
Okay, wonderful. Um, so yeah, let's get this started, and we'll get into this. And I'll start off by introducing myself a little bit. First of all, my mother's name is Jeanette Huston. My father's name is Lawrence Huston. Um, my grandmother's name is Sophie Makadensky. She was a settler who came over from the Ukraine. And my English name is Tyler Huston, and my Stetlian gifted name is Inchas Chupiishka, and that means breathing uncle. And I grew up in Manitoba on Ojibwe territory in Manitoba, and I found my way from Manitoba. Grew up on the prairies on the farm, and then moved to Arizona and spent quite a few years in the desert. And loved the desert as well, quite a contrast. But I spent a lot of time working with a wonderful woman. Iris was her name, and she had organic gardens. So I worked with her gardening, and she had gardens at many of the different downtown Phoenix restaurants. So we would go and tend to the gardens and grow the fruits and vegetables, and the chefs would come out and they would use it right from the garden. So it was a wonderful experience. Just the contrast again from farm in Manitoba to how differently things grow in the desert. But at that time in my life, teenage years, I had a lot, there's some incidents going on and some challenges and some struggles, and just was lucky enough that Iris's husband happened to be a Navajo elder, and he invited me to my first sweat lodge ceremony. And to this day, I owe them everything for putting me on the road that I walk down today, and that road that brought me out here to Vancouver Island. And I live in Nanaimo. I live on Nanaimo First Nation, ancestral territories, ancestral land. And when I moved to the island here, I met an island girl and fell in love. And that girl her name is Alex, Alex Huston, and she is actually a member of the Duwamish tribe, just from over the border here. But we have two boys, and yeah, we've been living on the island here for quite some time now. And when I got to the island, I got into helping. I got into healthcare. So as you mentioned, I'm kind of one of those jack of all kind of trades, but lots of different lives in the past. But when I got to the island, I became a healthcare aide. So I worked as a healthcare aide for a while, and then from healthcare aide, I worked as a community support worker in community. And then from there became a nurse and worked all around the hospitals, worked in emergency, worked in surgical, worked as a wound care nurse, specialized there for a while. And as you mentioned, spent a better part of a decade as a mental health and addictions nurse. So lots of hospital, lots of clinical side of things. I'm a paramedic as well. So I've always been interested in breathing. It's always been a part of things, but that's half of it. That's the half of this two-eyed seeing approach, and the other whole half of it comes from the Indigenous kind of way of knowing and land-based healing that has been shared with me over the last 12, 13 years of doing this work, of doing this breath as medicine work. So yeah, that's a bit of the background, or kind of where I'm coming from and where this program is coming from. And I want to pause for a minute now and put out there that, to spark things off is, if I can ask everybody out there a favor, and what that favor is that if we're open to just becoming a little bit more curious about breathing. And I just want a little bit more curious than we were 10 minutes ago before we sat down, or 5 minutes ago, or whenever you're joining in. And it really is that curiosity, that spark, that curiosity that really is going to help us in connecting with our breath, because that's what breath is. Breath is a bridge for connection. All right, and I'll I'll stop there too, and I just want to put it out there and ask. Actually, I'll put this to you, Carly. What comes up for you, and what do you think about when you think about breath and when you think about breathing? What pops into your head?
For me, it's like really personal. It's that I I wish that I could pause more and take that breath. Like it's a goal that I have, but also I do a lot of just looking through because my background is in nursing as well, and I really like looking for lots of information around health and around how we all like cope with so many different things. And I've seen a few different things lately that have come up for where it was like that we could be breathing wrong. So part of this for me, it's like I think of I want to introduce breathing more, but I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Like, and I don't think I never would have thought that there would be a way to breathe wrong, but I definitely feel like I have a lot of there's lots of things I'd like to learn about it, and I'd like to introduce it. So
Okay,
yeah.
beautiful. Thank you. And yeah, if anyone else out there has anything that they want to put into the chat, as far as what comes up for them when they think about breathing or think about breath, I'll share one story that a lady shared with me not too long ago, and we were in a group, and she was from way up north, and she had a dog team. She had sled dogs, and her family, her parents had sled dogs, and her grandparents always kept sled dogs. So it's been in the family for quite a while. But what she shared with me is every time that the mom would have a new litter of puppies, what they would do, they would pick up each puppy one at a time. And actually, I've got a good example here. I have a volunteer here who can help us here. This is Loki. I'll introduce Loki to everybody. Um, but what they would do when they'd have a new litter of puppies, they would just hold each pup one at a time, and they would just hold nose to nose, and they would just breathe. They would just breathe in their face, back and forth, and that's how they would imprint with that pup for the rest of their lives. That connection that they make from that breath in that moment was really what connects them for their life. So thank you to my volunteer there for being available.
You've done that before, hey, with him.
He's my foot warmer throughout the day. He was ready to go. I might use him again later when we talk about breathing again, if he's up for it. But yeah, just how really profound that breath can be for connection. You know, another gentleman shared with me that and he got a little bit misty-eyed when we were speaking because he hadn't thought about it for so long. He was maybe mid-70s, but he shared that when he was a boy, his grandfather used to take him down to the shoreline, and every morning they would just go and stand and spend 15 minutes breathing. And in that time, they would have that opportunity to connect with themselves, right? And they would have that opportunity to connect with all creation around them, and that's from that they would be able to feel the wind direction and have an idea what the weather was going to do. They can feel that temperature and even the pressure in the air and know if there's a storm coming. So just that time to really connect and just ground and just be outside and be there together was what that brought in. And that's how breathing works as we connect and get curious with it for ourselves. It begins here and then it spreads. And it spreads to family, it spreads to community, and it goes from there. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. I just wanted to share that with you guys. And what I think about when I think about breath is that breath is life. Yeah, breath is life. It's that first thing that we do when we come onto this plane, right? And it's that inhale, right? That first thing we do. And we were talking about this, Carly, and it is going to be the last thing that we do on the way out. Onto the next plane is our last exhale. Everything in the middle, that's up to us. That's up to what we do with it. And that's what the discussion we're going to get into today is what we do with that breath. it isn't something, or it is something that's automatic. It is something that if you didn't show up and if you weren't joining us today, you'd still be breathing tomorrow, right? But the idea of this talk is that we're going to show you and we're going to go through some breathing techniques that you're going to feel what happens when you move from that passenger seat and you sit behind the wheel. And when you grab a hold of that wheel and when you understand a little bit more about what's going on underneath that hood, about just the places that your breath can take you when you're behind it, when you're in control of it. So yeah, that's what pops up for me when I think about breathing. But that also changes by the moment, and that's where that curiosity comes in, because it changes with all emotions, and there's so many things that tie into breath that we're going to talk about as we go through this. So yeah, again, just anything. If we happen to be touching on a subject and you'd like to know more about that or inquire, just ask questions and we'll make sure we get to it. So, moving on and finishing kind of the introduction here, that curiosity with the breathing, okay? That's what this is all about, that getting that curiosity. And what got me really curious about breathing wasn't really the medical side of things. What it was, I had a new hobby or a new passion that I found when I moved out to the island here, and that is I'm a spear fisherman. I'm a free diver. So I don't know if you know what that is exactly or not. Some people think it's the people who jump out of the airplanes with the wingsuit, but that's not what it is. It's I dive in the ocean, and I don't use any noisy, clunky scuba tanks or respirators or gear, but just go down on the breath hold. And I harvest lingcod and fish and urchin and sea cucumbers and crab and whatever I could bring back for dinner.
Wow. What's the average temperature of that water?
It doesn't fluctuate a whole lot, but throughout the year, but it does feel much colder right about now. I think it's around 6-7 degrees, something like that. I am wearing a big, thick wetsuit, so I'm going to put that disclaimer out there. I'm not going. Yeah, with the hood, with the whole nine. So, any time of year, though, I can say that when you get down lower, it gets cold at the bottom. It gets quite cold. So yeah, and when I started doing this, I started to experience a feeling that I've never really felt before to that degree, and that is a feeling of this stillness, this quietness, this peacefulness that I wasn't really looking for it, but I felt that when I started holding my breath and kind of composing, slowing down my heart rate and feeling that connection. And it was pretty wild what happened when I did that. So, experiencing that and looking around, there's a lot of life everywhere you look in the waters here. There's fish and neon colors and all kinds of things to look at. So you want to stay longer and you want to go deeper. And the only way to do that is to learn to, compose that heart and slow everything down. And when I started doing that, what I noticed is when I was calm and being able to hang out longer, that's when I noticed that everything around me felt it as well. Everything around me felt that calm coming off of me. All right? And what I mean is, the fish swim right by you and swim right up out of the rocks, out of the caves and sit beside you. The schools just move right through and across, and they know you're there, but when you're there in that calm way, they welcome you. And even the big 1,000-pound bull sea lions that we have, they'll come right up face to face, and then I'll go upside down and flip on my back, and then they'll go on and flip on their back, and they turn into these big playful puppies underwater, and like Loki here, and nibble on your flippers, and they just know that you're there in that calm way. And that's what breathing is. Breathing is that energy, right? It's that creator's breath, right? That connects all of us in creation. As long as we're breathing, we carry creator with us, and it is that breath that connects us with everything around us. So yeah, I really noticed that calm really does resonate out there, and that's what I want you guys to pay attention to as well. that breathing is a vibration. It's a measurable vibration. You know, it's a frequency. It is a non-spoken, non-verbal, but it's just what we put off all the time. So pay attention to, you know, the rooms that you walk into, you know, the Walmarts maybe at this time of year with the Christmas shopping, and notice that frequency that's coming back, you know, the breathing around you, how it affects you, how it affects your breathing. But what I also want you to pay attention is how your breath and how your breathing influences those spaces that you're in. And that's a major piece to it.
That's very cool to hear. I'm sure all of us have like walked into a place and just been like, I think I just want to maybe step back outside and maybe not
Right.
hit this store or that Walmart. But I love that idea that you could impact those around you
Mm-hmm.
to just sort of walk into that and see
So,
how many people you could calm down.
yeah, and that's just it. I mean, it's always speaking for myself, you know, in the past, if someone is telling me to breathe when I'm at a place of, you know, if I'm escalated or upset, that rarely is helpful. I don't know if you've experienced that as well, but just breathing for yourself first and being close to someone, breathing in that good way, it is that co-regulation. It's absorbed, especially with the young ones, right? With the youth, with the kids. The way we breathe is absorbed, and that's that vibration I'm talking about that is absorbed by everything around us. And what really put a spotlight on this, when I was like, okay, there's something here, this is major, is I'll never forget. I was diving, I was underwater, and all of a sudden I saw a big shadow out of my peripherals, and of course I was thinking Jaws or whatever first of all, but I mean it was nothing. It was a pile of kelp seaweed floating on the surface. But for that couple of seconds where I let my head, you know, my head get ahead of me, that couple of seconds I can feel my heart rate go up, and it was that first couple beats of that heart rate increasing. It was whew, everything vanished, everything gone as far as I can see. And that's what I'm talking about, how powerful that is of our body and how everything around us has that sense of what's going on with us. So that's what started my curiosity in that moment. I think that's was okay. There's a lot here. And then so when I was out of the water, when I was at home, what I noticed was I had right away when I started paying more attention and being curious about my breathing, I had more patience. I remember feeling more patience with my coworkers, with my kids, with my wife. And what happens is breathing really does give us that ability of having a little bit more uh, of that responsiveness and a little less of the reaction. Okay, so more response, less reaction, more thoughtful response, and less emotional reaction. Okay, and let me clarify that just to be clear. I'm not saying that the emotions are the bad part or the bad thing. It's that pouring more gas on the fire and making things worse side of it that really can be counteracted with our breath and how we can just be how quickly it helps to regulate us. And maybe it's even a quarter of a second. That's it, a quarter of a second where we're maybe not just blurting out what we don't mean or just, you know, that activation side, but that might make all the difference in the world, to be able to respond. So that's the first thing that I really started noticing, that patient side of things. And the second thing that I noticed, and I know I'm not alone in this one, but as soon as I started getting more curious about my breath and my breathing, I started sleeping way better. All right. I saw your eyes light up a little there, Carly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I started falling asleep easier and I started getting a much deeper quality sleep. And that's just what happens. And we'll talk about specifically some ways as we go through this talk, how our breath, how quickly our breath helps. Because as you know, I mean, you cannot underestimate how important a good night's sleep is. You really can't. Everything changes when we sleep better. We're happier. We are have more energy. We have more focus, more concentration. Um, and that's not just for us, but again, that's for everyone. That's for the littles. That's for the kids. When they don't get a good night's sleep, they feel the same way we do. So how can we expect them, to sit through class the whole time and and to focus when they're not sleeping well? And a lot of it is tied with our breath and with breathing. So yeah, when you are sleeping great, everything's great. You feel better, your skin gets brighter, your eyes get whiter, you just have that pep in your step. And so I started feeling this way. I started feeling great, and I wanted to share it with others. I was working at down in the nursing office at a healing center I work at out here on the island, and I had a lady come down. She was from Nunavut, and she came into the office and she was looking for her anti-anxiety medication because she left her group and she was in a panic attack. She'd gotten triggered and she was in a panic attack, so she came to see me. So being a nurse, I put the pills in the container. I set the container in front of her, but I asked her if we could just spend a few minutes breathing together first. And we just did some very calm breathing. 3-4 minutes went by. She agreed. And after that 3-4 minutes, she got up and she shut the door behind her. She left the office, but she left those pills in the cup on the desk behind her when she left. And that was the moment that I knew how I could be much more supportive and helpful, and that is by using breath as medicine for so many different, that's anxiety, stress, but there's so for pain, for trauma, for heart health, for liver function, for regulating diabetes, insulin levels. There's so many things we can do with our breath. But that's the moment it all kind of came together. And really interesting that same scenario played itself out. We did this another 3 or 4 times. Same thing. She would come in to see me, sit down in a panic, pills in the container, set it in front, but then we did some breathing together, and then she got up and walked away and left the pills behind. And the cool part is, 3rd or 4th time, she brought her roommate down, and I sat across the desk, and I just watched as a spectator as she walked her roommate through it and did the breathing with her roommate and was able to bring that calmness and grounding, and then the two of them left the office together. So that is really how it works. It starts here and then it spreads from there. So yeah, that's it. That's how this got started. And I've been doing this for quite a few years now. And it's my wife and I, Alex. We're the founders and the directors of the Breathe First program. So what we do, we travel in community, and we work with healing houses, recovery centers, treatment centers, sober houses, health clinics, and we just share teachings with breath. And she brings such a powerhouse with her. She's also a doula. So she does a lot of work with us young families and soon-to-be moms and new, developing children. So that really blends in quite nicely with the work that we do together. Yeah, that kind of, I guess that brings us up to speed, and that's right here, and that's how I believe that we connected, Carly. As I was in Winnipeg doing a talk with NIDA, the National Indigenous Diabetes Association, I believe. And from that talk, that's someone from ONWA was there, and that's what connected us here.
Yeah, my coworker Sam, she really spoke highly. She really enjoyed your session, and she was hoping to. I think you had a few sessions, and she said was kind of dismayed that she couldn't attend all of them. But I think that's really cool. And she had said too that you would help some people. You showed them some of the tools and some of the breathing strategies, and I think like our viewers and the community members watching today will really be into co-regulating with you in these moments. Do you use your hand? Like, do you sort of do that? I see you've done this motion. Do you use that as like a tool? away from the
I
sound.
use
I
my
don't know
hands
yourself.
all the time. That's why I can
Okay.
never talk with a microphone because I'm a hand talker at the best of times, and I can't. But I always do. Yeah, it just that extra visualization,
Mhm.
and still to this day, whenever I'm really doing a breath, if it's outside, wherever I quite often incorporate my hands just to go with it because it just puts your whole body into it a little bit more as well and gives you more of a connection to that feel.
I can
Um,
imagine too if people are like maybe dysregulated, like sounds sometimes, like think
mhm.
like hearing and like listening and acting on like directions, that might be difficult. So like the hand motion might be more easy to sort of focus in on.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Mhm.
good call. Because yeah, the more that ties it to it, yeah, all senses, right? So yeah, absolutely. Um, uh, so yeah, that's how this all kind of came to be, and this is how I'd like to frame up breathing because I know for myself, I never thought about breathing. Right? The odd maybe coach or somewhere along those lines, or whoever it might be, maybe counselor, whoever it might mention breathing, but not to any degree, not to any depth. And that's what I want to present out there to everyone today. Breath is our most important fuel for our body. It is our most important energy supply. So at this time of year, again, when everything is so busy and there's a lot of darkness, why it's so important to really tap into that breath. And it's just a different way to look at it because, I mean, if you think we have on one hand, on one side, we have water, hydration, right? Water is medicine too, just as breath is medicine. But, oh, there we go. Let's take a water break. It's all about the reminders. So yeah, we know how important hydration is, right? We are water to stay hydrated. On the other hand, we have nutrition, right? We know we've always been taught, good, natural, whole foods and how important that is. But I'd like you to think about breathing, place it on that same shelf, but place it in the front, in the middle, because how we breathe in the moment is how we feel in the moment. Right now, just take a minute, take a couple breaths. How we breathe is how we feel. And if that's the case, then how we breathe is how we live, right? So, kind of interesting way to think about it. And again, we can go days without food, days without water, but only a few moments without that breath. Um, so yeah, and here's the thing, and you were speaking about this in the beginning, um, Carly, that you said that you thought that maybe you didn't breathe right or you're breathing wrong. Uh, to the average adult, I'm trying to say this politely. That's kind of why I'm stepping around, and not towards you, but towards all of us. Most of us adults do a pretty terrible job of breathing. Okay, and it's from a lot of reasons. Okay, most of us maybe use 50% of the potential that we could be bringing in from that respiratory, that inspiratory energy in a day, maybe 50%. So think about that moving forward and getting out of bed, putting the feet on the ground, getting out of bed, and then taking half of our most important energy and flushing it down the drain before moving forward. It makes it very difficult to fully heal or recover or thrive, right? That's the idea. That's what we're trying to do, is not just get by, but to thrive. And so that's what we're going to start introducing our breath for, and breath to do is we're going to start rebuilding that breath and restoring that breath and adding a little more here, a little bit more here, until we're getting that breath back. Okay, so that's what this is all about. There is many different breathing styles and different breathing techniques out there, right? There's hundreds of different breathing styles, and there is a time and a place for all of them. There really is. But through the Breathe First program, we like to teach the whole story so that whatever situation you're in and whatever happens to you, you know how to respond and how your breath, what changes in you and what you can do to accommodate that moment you're in. So yeah, what we do and what this is all about, this isn't a technique, but what this is, what we do, we work together to restore your natural breath, your traditional breath, your efficient breath. So it's not that you were breathing wrong, okay? So let that be clear too. I'm not saying you're breathing wrong. You just have gotten away. And what we're going to do is we're going to remind you of how you used to breathe. We're going to remind you of how we can restore and reconnect and reintroduce you to that breath that we started out with. So that will be our first exercise we're going to get to in a minute, is going to be our reintroduction breath. That's what it's going to be. Okay. Interesting, isn't it? Just that kind of different perspective, different kind of way to think about breathing. And just, the last little conversation that I want to have here, the last part to touch on before we get into the exercise, is I think it's important that we do discuss some of those things that has changed our breath and taken it away from where it started. All right. So anything jump up that you can think about right away, that, and not detail, but like overall, anything that you think has changed your breathing?
Changed me personally?
Or
Or are
overall?
you just saying
Yeah,
just like us in general?
yeah.
Well, I imagine that, like, I guess experiences in our childhood, for some they might identify it as trauma, but just
Yeah,
maybe being in those places where we've experienced like fear.
yeah.
I imagine
So,
that, like, when our fight or flight kicks in, our breathing will be changing anyways in that. But I just when I think about it, I think breath holding
yeah.
in those
Okay.
moments.
So that's huge. What you just said there. Trauma was the first thing you said, because trauma probably is the biggest factor that influences our breathing, because it creates a hold. Like you also said, right? We feel that trauma, we walk around with it, and it sits up here. It's a hold, and we feel that hold in our breath, and because it's a disconnect, right? We disconnect from that feeling that we experience, that injury, right? That's what trauma is. It is a psychological injury, right? We feel it up here, we hold it up here, and we disconnect all the way around. And that's what, as we begin to tie with our breathing, and we use that exhale and the release of our breathing, gently, you start to feel that slip down off of the chest, and you kind of lose that hold, lose that tension off the chest as it begins to slip away. So yeah, trauma is probably one of the biggest things that does change our breathing, definitely. You said nervous system. Yeah, of course, our nervous system, regulation, emotions, right? All emotions. If you're really happy, we're going to be breathing in a certain way, right? It changes all the way around. If you get up and you stub your toe and you're in pain, you're going to be breathing a certain way, right? If you're if you're upset, if you're angry, you're going to be breathing all the way along. Emotions change our breathing as well. I think we talked about too, my Walmart reference again at this time of year. I know that's always high emotions with the shopping carts and the lineups and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot that go. Our breathing definitely. My breathing changes when I go into a Walmart at this time of year. So anxiety, stress, tension. Okay, let's speak about that for a minute, because that is really a biggest factor right now as well. Is just how busy our lives are, right? How much is going on? That constant stress. The more digitally connected we become, the more disconnected we become from each other. It's that digital connection that we always feel we're hyperactive, that we're always connecting that way. So it adds stress. And something I want to share is I was in a breathing circle in Nanaimo here not long ago, and there was an elder in the circle. And I spoke about restoring our breath, right back to, imagine seeing a toddler running around without a shirt on and seeing that belly, moving in and out. That's what I'm talking about, that breath. That's where we're taking this back to. And he stopped me for a moment and he paused. And he said, that is a peaceful breath. And how good is that? That is a peaceful breath before that shifts, before that might change. And then he got a little misty-eyed at that point, because he started talking about how he barely gets to see his adult children anymore because they're so busy with their lives and their work schedule is so busy, and then they're always on the go and he doesn't see them. And he also tied in there too that when he does see them and they do bring the grandkids, that the grandkids are on these things or playing the video games and distracting away, so they're not really fully there either, in the moment. And this is what he shared with me, and this is what I want to put out there to everyone because this landed with me. He said that we've become so good at being human doings that we forgot how to be human beings. And that really stuck with me because isn't that the truth, right? We spend so much time thinking about either being in the past or about how I should have done this, I could have done this, that I regret doing this. Or if we're not in the past, we're ahead of ourselves, being like, I got to keep up with the Joneses over here. I've got to do this. I've got to be ahead of myself. Life happens in the moment, in the present moment. And that's something that your breath is always able to bring you into the moment, into the right now. So starting now, and as we go through the rest of this talk and through the holidays, I'd encourage everyone just to practice human being, right? And taking that time for yourself, using your breath to put you in this moment, right? And it doesn't always feel terrific, right? That's why it is so easy, why we do distract at all costs, but to sit in the moment, to ride out the emotions, we are in the moment, and to be present, that's where a lot of growth occurs, right? Is when we are present with ourselves and we're sitting there. So yeah, that was a big one I wanted to really put across. Mm-hmm. Breathing brings presence, and it really brings us together into the present moment. So lots of other things that change our breath too, and we can, I don't want to talk about, the doom and gloom for too long because that's not what it's about, but it's important to just say, right? So it is stress, it's physical injury, it's diet. Our diet completely influences how we breathe. It's posture. It's sitting in bad chairs for way too long. Oh, there, I saw you that adjustment whenever someone says posture. Mm-hmm. I wonder if everyone else out there did a little bit of adjustment in their chairs when I mentioned that. But it's from sitting for too long in chairs, those little chairs in elementary school and all the way up, and not getting up enough and getting outside, and moving around enough. And I want to say that right now, make a point of that anything that we're learning together in this talk today, everything becomes twice as powerful the second you get it outside and you breathe outside. Just that fresh air. It's the land that does the healing, so you don't even need specific instructions. Just go outside and breathe, because that really is where the healing happens. So things like environment, right? Wildfire smoke. How bad has that been for the last few years as far as changing our breathing? What else? Pollution, things like that. Smoking, substances, alcohol, of course, change our breathing too, right? Affects our nervous system, medications, conditions, sickness, illness, all this changes our breathing, okay? Even screens, being on screens really change our breath a lot. Just when we're on a screen, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but the word for it is screen apnea. So if you've caught yourself all of a sudden taking that big gasp out of nowhere and wondering where that came from, it's because we hold our breath when we're on screen. So think about being like a cougar in the tall grass, right? Think about being ready to pounce. And at that moment, right, you're either going to be holding your breath completely or breathing so shallow and so high up in your chest that you're not bringing in any oxygen or nutrients at all into your body, right?
With the screens too, you said like there's the posture element, there's this like, and that holding around that like tension and excitement, I guess, even too, probably. That's really interesting. The screens are getting us in different ways here, hey?
Yeah, that's right.
And I lean with my neck like this. And
yes, sure. Yeah. It changes your breath right away. And it's oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we had a couple questions come in.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off there, but
no, that's good.
Someone was asking, do you think you could speak a little bit on how smudging and medicines can help us with our breathing? Has that ever come
Um,
up in your practice?
sure. I mean, what I would say is, breathing and just connecting with our breath brings us into the present moment. So it puts us in ceremony. It puts us there as our genuine selves. It brings us to the moment. So if you're in sweat lodge or if you're smudging, it's not about thinking, okay, how should I be breathing right now? But it's just about breathing in that good way and just using it to bring you into the present moment. And I know, speaking on the other side about like smudging specifically, it does is definitely a disinfectant. So it does take care of a lot of allergens and a lot of germs and bugs in the air when you're smudging your spaces too. So that helps you, keep your immune system up and not breathe in, as many toxins that might be around you.
Thank you so much. I have two questions around sort of with this like our cold and flu season rapidly approaching. Someone's
Mm-hmm.
asked, many colds come with a respiratory element, and they were wondering if you had any advice for remaining connected to breathing while you might be physically struggling to breathe.
Okay. Yes, actually, that's a this is the time of year for that, isn't it? Um, but lots of bugs, lots of germs, and we'll get into this a bit later more. But the big rule, I guess, is your mouth is for eating, your nose is for breathing. Okay, and keep it separate as much as you can. Mouth, keep that associated with your digestive system, and nose, respiratory. Okay, we were created to breathe through our noses. Ancestors used to breathe through their noses always. All right, and there's a few different reasons why right now, while it's cold season. If you're breathing through your nose, you get all that filtration, right? In the back of the nose, there's all those little hairs in the back of the nose, those little hairs that are right in the nostrils and actually go all the way back through. Those help filter out bugs as you're breathing in. The second factor about breathing through your nose is there's a temperature change. Okay, it's thermoregulation. So as you're breathing through your nose, it actually changes the temperature of that air from the time it hits your nostrils until it hits your lungs, and that slight difference in temperature is enough to kill the majority of bugs coming in, that slight temperature change. So that's really important to know. Um, the other piece of it is if you're breathing through your nose, then you're breathing less, right? You're not taking those big gulps in, and just that less volume means less chance that you're going to be pulling any bugs in, right? Just by that alone.
Yeah.
And one more part to this too is this is pretty fascinating too, and actually the two physicians and the scientist who discovered this won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering that when you breathe through your nose, it injects nitric oxide into the airstream. And nitric oxide, I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but nitro is a medicine that you spray underneath your tongue if you're having a heart attack or angina because it is a vasodilator. It opens up all the vessels in your body immediately, boosting and increasing circulation. So, just by breathing through that nose more often and breathing slowly through that nose, what you're doing is you're bringing that nitric oxide in and it's opening up all your circulation. But the part that's helpful for the colds and flus is that nitric oxide is an antiviral and is an antibacterial. So it really actually helps sterilize any of those bugs before they get into your system and before they get a hold of you. So lots of different things that are very, very helpful at this time of year that are just small little adjustments. And a few things, and I'm sure the questions that are coming up right now is, what if my nose is plugged from a cold? Which is a very good question at that point. So there's a few different things at that point. Okay, one, hot shower, right? The steam and maybe even a little eucalyptus in the shower is really good to help open up those airways. When you just breathe through your nose, your actually chemistry in your body switches, and it'll help those nostrils open up even more in all your airways. So even if you need to blow your nose really well in a Kleenex and then just switch to nose breathing, even if you have to pull that air through in the beginning, your airways will open themselves the more you try to pull that air through. So that's another good thing. And something else that's quite helpful is powerful medicine is OSHA or bear root. I know is quite helpful. Um, and that is something that you can make out of teas, or that's something that you can just open, keep in a container, and just breathe. And I know that's a powerful medicine we use out here. The elders even out here sprinkle it right onto the grandfather stones right in Sweat Lodge and breathe it in, or they'll put it right into the smudge bowl before pipe ceremony just to help breathe in, because it really helps open everything up and open that heart and open up your airways.
That's very cool. Thanks for sharing that about that medicine. Bear root, you said?
Bear root, yeah. OSHA is another word for it.
OSHA?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I have one more question here.
Yeah.
The question is, a sense of smell is often related to breathing. Do you find that aromas can help with breathing, or with breathing exercises, like having an aroma in the room, I'm assuming? Do you find them therapeutic, or do you find them disruptive? What is your take on scents or aromas as part of your breathing practice?
That's a good question. I don't get that question very often. I really like that question. Um, what I would think it reminds there's let's talk about the reasons of why we were kind of created to breathe with our noses. Okay, and just for example, let's use hunters maybe back in the day. Okay, and think about, like, as I'm making these examples, think about how they would apply to our everyday in this question right now. Um, if you're breathing through your nose, you are smelling, right? So if you are smelling, it's going to be more helpful to bring you to the moment, just even that geographically, right? Just that location to help really put you in your shoes in the moment if you're using that sense of smell. If you're walking in the forest and you smell a patch of mushrooms or a group of trees that you know you're nearby, it's very helpful. And if you're breathing through your nose and you're activating that sense of smell, you're activating more all the rest of your senses as well. As soon as you kick one sense in, the rest of them start to pick up as well. So anytime you can bring reminders to your breath, I think it's a great idea and it's a wonderful idea. So things like, yeah, any kind of smells that you have around. I know at this time of year, one of my absolute favorite things to do is I'll go and I'll harvest fresh cedar boughs, and I'll put them on the stove and boil them. And so that brings that moisture into that house, that warm moisture, and that beautiful, that
Good
cedar smell
medicine.
through the whole
Yeah.
house. And it also helps to, as an antiseptic, to help sterilize as well, and it helps kill the germs in the air as well. So anything like that, yeah, I would avoid any of the synthetic smells as much as you can, because they'll add what those actually do. Any like a lot of like the plug-in air fresheners and even the scented candles, if they're not naturally scented, will block off your nostrils, and they'll close off airways. So if you have the option, if you can get like beeswax candles actually remove the toxins from the air. So if you're at any local markets around this time of year, those are good stocking stuffers, or even for yourself, because they'll help clear out the air from other candles that might be burning in the area. It helps pull that kind of that smell out of the air, or those toxins, I should say.
That's a good point when you think that the previous question too was around like just like the cold and flu season, and sometimes we use these like different scents to sort of like we that sensation of like opening airways, but if they're
Mm-hmm.
not like a natural source, if they're those synthetic smells,
Yeah.
like you said, it actually might be working against what our goal is and what we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. My mom gives me a bit of a hard time because whenever I'm in her vehicles, she gets those plug-in air fresheners that she keeps putting in her car. But every time I'm in, I grab them and I take them out, have them with me. So we've been having this going for quite a long time. But anyway, I'm just trying to help.
Those trees, those like air freshener trees, I just want to rip those out too sometimes. They actually, I feel like they give me a bit of a headache. There is something
I'm
about
sure.
some of those synthetic smells. They have that, they can be
Hmm.
pretty powerful.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any other questions right now? Is that it? Are we caught up?
I think we are caught up. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so
Perfect.
much, everyone who's posted those questions.
Yeah,
There's
those
some
are
good
great.
ones.
One last thing to add to that pile of helping to open things up if you do find yourself congested in the shower, we mentioned, but there, try to go hot as you can take it for a minute or two, and then go as cold as you can take it for a minute or two, and then go back as hot as you can take it and as cold as you can take it. And do that 3 or 4 times back and forth, and that is one of the best things I've found for decongestion. And what that also does is it really turns on your immune system, and it gets all the warriors up front to fight off and to really wake up that immune system to fight off any bugs or anything from stepping in. So that's a really good practice as well.
Cool.
Okay. Um, so just to finish off that conversation again about the things that have taken our breath away from where it started, and to finish on the screens. Because I mean, we all spend here. We're all on screens together, right? It's mandatory. It isn't necessary that we do it to a degree, but think about the moments and the hours and the days over our lives we've spent on a screen. That every moment that we're on that screen, we're building a muscle memory up of breathing up here in that way. That we put a lot of effort into creating and teaching ourselves to breathe like this. So when we put our phone down or we close our laptop and we get off, our breathing doesn't just shift back. We've spent a lot of time training ourselves to breathe up here in a way that just kind of stems anxiety and panic, and really does create a lot of symptoms from being up here. So that's, I think, enough doom and gloom talk, like I said, but it's important. There's a lot of things that change your breath, but what is even more important, we restore that breath the same way. All right, and that's what we're going to get into right now. So let's get into our first exercise. All right, and this is our reintroduction to our natural breath. And the first teaching is that your breath is your truth. All right, so let's think about that for a minute. Your breath is your truth. You can always count on your breath. You can always rely on your breath to tell you the truth about exactly where you are in the moment, both here and here at the same time. Where there's a lot of times where if we're just stuck up here, we can get in trouble, right? If it's the negative thinking or self-doubt or cravings, anything, right? But when we can connect with our breath, it'll tell us exactly where we are, both in our body and in our mind at the same time in the moment. Okay, so let's get into this, and we'll start doing this together. And so I'll explain it, how this first one works, and then I'll demonstrate it so you can hear what mine sounds like, and then we'll do it together. All right, but I'd like everyone to imagine that you're just blowing out a candle. And so that candle's in front of you. So you're going to purse your lips, and you're going to create a little bit more restriction as well than you normally would. If that restriction is just going to help create more of a hissing or a whistling sound. So this is what mine sounds like. Give mine a listen first. Okay, so that's my truth in this moment right now. That's my story. All right, and that's my story of exactly this moment. And the beautiful thing about it is you can't manipulate it or try to make it sound like something it's not. It is what it is. It's this moment, and everyone has a different story, right? Everyone's story changes from moment to moment, right? So there's no right or wrong way to do this. Everyone should sound different. Okay, so you ready to join me, and we're going to try this together. You got another? Okay.
I don't
CJ's
see
in
jump
too?
in too. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
Okay.
here we go. So inhale. Beautiful. Beautiful. Perfect.
Okay.
Just like that. Okay. And breathing is all about feeling, right? Breathing's all about paying attention to the little things. So my favor, I asked everyone when we started to get more curious about breathing. This is what I mean. I want you to pay attention to the little things behind the scenes that you don't normally, the little intricacies, the little subtleties that we don't normally pay attention to. Okay?
I'm wondering if we could just like shout out to everyone just to like give us if there's anyone wants to share like how that experience was for them.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some feedback. I kind of felt like
Please do.
not to lie, like just almost like a little lightheaded.
Okay.
I don't know
So,
if it's lightheaded or if I'm just like or if I'm suddenly
okay.
getting more oxygen. And
No, that's perfect timing, Carly, because the next teaching is with our breath, less is more. Okay? Less is so much more when it comes to breathing. It's kind of opposite of what we've been taught our whole lives, but really, the teaching is that to say we're meant to breathe lightly the same way we're meant to tread softly on this land, right? Don't over harvest from an area, don't over hunt, don't overfish from an area. Only take what is necessary. Anything more can be harmful. And so that's why I'm saying that now is between this, you don't want to rush into it. Breath should always, nothing should ever be forced. Everything should always be gentle. So make sure you take enough time. Don't hyperventilate on me by doing this like right back to back, okay? So take time in between. But also that feeling that you're explaining of lightheadedness, that is likely caused by maybe a little bit too much of an inhale. That is normally where that comes from. So just keep that in mind moving forward. Good call, and I like that you caught that, and that's the feeling that it brought with it for you, is that lightheadedness. I'm sure there's others out there as well that they maybe felt the same thing. So that's a great point to say, because here we are doing a breath as medicine talking about breathing, but don't breathe too much. Right?
It's kind of like take a big breath. Like that's a really I feel like a common phrase you hear. Like the big breath is like an important.
Our whole lives we've been told that.
Yeah.
Less is so much more, and that's what we're going to get into. We're going to be able to do so much more with so much less as we get into this. So yeah, be gentle with yourselves and pay attention to everything going on behind the scenes. So let's give it another try and really listen to that exhale on the way out. Okay, so inhale. Yes, so good. Okay, and then every time I want you to notice what's happening, how it's making you feel, the different sounds coming out. So you're just listening to that feedback, right? You're listening to that story along the way. And then we're going to do one more here before we talk a little bit more. But I like to do things in threes. Okay? So let's do a third breath, and then we'll do a little check-in here. So inhale. And out. Good. Very good. Okay. Breathing brings balance. And I think in 3 breaths, we could normally go from anywhere to anywhere. Okay. If we're up here, it can come to here, or if we're down here, it can bring us back to here. How are you feeling, Carly?
I'm feeling good. That last one, I feel like that exhale that I was doing, the first one that I did, it was I didn't have any sound. Like I was trying to almost like make a sound. But as I got to the third one, I was able to hear that slight whistle that you had said.
Okay. And how about CJ there? How's CJ feeling? Is he napping over there yet? Or is he?
No, yeah. He's got to holler a little bit so the mic, you can pick up on the mic.
Hello. Uh, Feeling pretty good. On that third exhale, I could really feel all like the tension come out of my shoulders and kind of like release from my body, which
Yes.
was wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you for that, CJ. And it's nice to put a face to
Yeah,
that
it,
voice in the
you know,
background. I
CJ's
love it.
always in the background. I don't think anyone's ever seen him too. I was so thinking about the like sound and
Hmm.
focusing here that I kind of neglected to almost like do a body scan and
Hmm.
notice that.
So, yeah, and I like what you're saying there because it is all tied together. All right. And the big point here is, and this is something that I'd like you to put in your pockets right now, the key to relaxation is in the exhalation. Okay? Calm lives in the exhale. So anytime we need to slow anything down, anytime we need to calm anything down, remember your exhale is the brake pedal. The exhale will help slow everything down. Okay? And why I say will, and we can have confidence to know it's a will, it'll happen, not a I hope it might happen, because every second that you exhale, your heart rate is actually slowing down. Okay? How you breathe completely controls how your heart is beating, and we're in control of that. We're behind the wheel of that. We can make that happen. All right? So it's powerful stuff when we know what we can do. So, number one, that exhale is slowing down your heart rate, which is bringing calm and bringing down that heart rate. The second thing it's doing, it's you literally flipping a switch. As you lengthen that exhale, that's the mechanism that influences your vagus nerve. Okay? And your vagus nerve begins in the breathing center of your brain, from then wanders and connects to every major organ in your body. Your vagus nerve is the boss of your nervous system, the operator. And all you have to do is lengthen that exhale to flip the switch to take you from that place of fight, flight, or freeze, and it will set you right into rest, digest, and connect every time. All right? Just by lengthening that exhale. Isn't that beautiful?
That's very cool. I imagine too is like the more you do it, that lag time between when you start breathing and like those effects, that might actually shorten. I know for me right before we started, CJ was giving me my countdown and my heart started to just race a bit. So I tried to take a couple of breaths and I was like, it didn't work right away. But did you notice that in your practice that there like with that practice and that there's a faster response time?
Without a question of a
Yeah.
doubt, time and time again. And that's what I want you to pay attention to too
Okay.
from today
Yeah.
moving forward. Breathing is something that as you get curious with it, the more you connect with it every day, you will get better at it every single day. And what I mean by better at it is you're being able to feel that response in your body shift and happen that much sooner. So it's like using a compass. I call this breath, another word for this breath is the compass breath, because it's a good way to check in with yourself to know exactly where you are in that moment.
Oh, the compass
And
breath. Mhm.
pardon me.
I'm just writing some things down that you said of
Okay,
like the
that's good.
compass.
So,
I like
so
that.
to add on to that same, just talking about the nervous system and how this lengthened exhale is what influences that vagal nerve and shifts us to that side. Something else that does the same thing of activating that vagus nerve is eye movement, moving your eyes around. And that is why it's so important to get outside and get off the screens and get out and look at the trees, look at the birds, look at the clouds moving across. It's that eye tracking movement that has a direct effect on your nervous system. And I don't care how big your TV is at home, your big screen, it's not big enough to make this effect take place. So, again, just getting outside, doing your nice long exhale outside, looking around, watching, noticing all creation around you, it just amplifies the calming effect and how it affects your body that much quicker. So let's keep going. Let's go again. Let's do one more and really listen again and how this breath is sounding, how your story is sounding as we go through. So inhale and out. Yes. So good. Okay. Breathing brings balance. I've said it before, I'm going to repeat it a lot because in so many different ways in our life, breathing brings balance. All right? Think about your breath, the sound that your breath makes as the sound of your nervous system operating. Okay? And in 3 or 4 breaths that we just did you, or to everyone out there, did you notice how noticeable your breath sounded, that it just smoothed itself out by the end, how it started off quite sharp, and you notice the bumps and jumps and jaggies is the medical term I like to use there along the way, but it gets smoother every time you do this. You pick up on that? You notice?
I did, yeah.
Okay. That is how quickly you were able to bring balance to your nervous system in 3 or 4 breaths, that you can significantly hear the difference. Powerful stuff.
I have a question about the inhale. So you said
Yes.
like less is more.
Yes.
For beginners, do you ever recommend like a certain time? Like, because there's also that kind of information like out
Yep.
there around like a 4-second breath in, or
Yep.
like how much maybe you want to see like your abdomen or your belly kind of expand. Like, have you ever provided any guidance around the
Absolutely.
type of inhale?
Yeah, absolutely. The first part of this is that no one could ever really tell anyone else exactly how they should be breathing. Okay, that's the first part to make sure it's clear. All right. Breathing is all about feel, but an idea or a guideline is, if you're inhaling, and again, this is in and out through the nose. That's the important piece. If you're inhaling for anywhere around 3 or say 4 seconds, for example, I want you to try to exhale for 5 seconds. Okay? If you're inhaling for 3 seconds, try exhaling for 4 seconds. Okay? And it's just that slight little bit longer is what brings on all those benefits that we were just talking about the power of that exhale and keeping us in a calm state. All right? So that's the first part of it, is, you're always a little bit longer. This is the most important word when it comes to breathing, is slowed breathing. Okay? So if you have a pen and paper, if you are taking notes, write that word down, slowed breathing. And then from that word, you could underline or circle the S, the L, and the D. And from those letters, I want you to pull down slowly, lightly, and deeply. All right, and that's what to think about. It's the slowly, lightly, but still deeply. Make sure you're getting it down low. You're not shallow up in the chest. And in the beginning, the challenging part is that lightly and deeply at the same time. All right, so that's everyone's homework. You didn't know you were going to get homework today, but there we go. That is the practice is, and this is before bed. This is anytime. Slowly, lightly, deeply. All right, and I did give you seconds there, right? We talked about 4 seconds in, 5 out, or 3 and 4 out. I want to make that clear too, that those seconds, that timing in the beginning to get on that pace, that is kind of closer to the pace of where we started off breathing. It's going to feel slower to you in the beginning, but in no time at all, your body adjusts and it feels totally natural. It feels good in no time at all. But those seconds themselves, the timing, think of that as your training wheels, okay? That the sooner than later, you're going to kick off those training wheels and you're going to be on your way, and you're going to be going back to entirely by feel, and you're just going to feel that your exhale is a little bit longer than your inhale, okay? And another very important piece to this is not just the timing, but it's the rhythm, okay? And a very good visual to think about with your breath is rhythmic rolling waves. That's what I want you to think about. That you're leading into everything with your breath, and you're leading with those rhythmic rolling waves. All right? And so try, even in your own head, try not to use the words pausing or stopping when you're talking about breath. Because what those words tend to do is they create sharp edges in your breath. And what I'd like you is to avoid sharp edges in your breathing at all costs. All right? And if you feel your breath is starting to get sharp, and that probably means that you've moved back to mouth breathing, you've moved into your chest, and that's where those mountain range breathing comes from. So if you feel that starting, you're switching back to nose breathing, you're shifting back to that smoothing out the edges of that rolling wave breath. So slowly, lightly, deeply. That's the magic words to think about in the beginning.
The deeply, I almost feel like there's a bit of tension. Maybe it's because I probably do just breathe up here and not as much using my abdomen.
Yeah. Do you know what? Mm-hmm. That is a very good point. And I think that's something that I'd like to demonstrate right now with everyone of how important that point is. Okay? And not just talk about it, but I want you to feel it so everyone can feel the difference here, because this is life-changing to know. All right? So the first thing what I'd like you to do, we're going to do this through with our mouth, okay? But we're just going to take a big breath in through our mouth and then a big breath out through our mouth, okay? So let's give that a try. So, good, okay? So you felt where that went. You felt how you maybe get a little lightheaded when you did that one too, perhaps a little bit, okay? So now you probably felt it up here, up high into the chest. Let's do it again here, and now this is going to be a breath in and out through our nose. And I want you to feel the difference, okay? So here we go. In through the nose, and out through the nose. Okay? Night and day difference between those two, isn't it? Okay? Let's go back and forth one more time. So first with the mouth. Perfect. And now follow that up with a nice nose breath. Okay. Yeah. Totally different. Night and day. What did you notice there?
That phrase, peaceful breath. That to me, there's that difference was there.
Okay.
It definitely felt more peaceful, more relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah. Mouth breath is upper chest. It's high volume, it's upper chest, it's over the heart, okay? That will create anxiety, that will create panic, okay? Nose breathing induces, or it activates diaphragmatic breathing. If we're using our diaphragm, every system in the body benefits. And it's softer, it's slower, it can feel it's more round, and it's stronger. It's how we're meant to breathe it. You're activating actually those breathing muscles, right? The way that they're supposed to be used. So even though it's slower, softer, it's a much stronger breath. So that's the big difference. And now hopefully that you all felt that difference, like how mouth breathing puts that air into the chest. And now think for a minute. I want to explain. We all just proved that mouth breathing equals upper chest breathing, right? But now, even if you think you're a nose breather for most of the day or most of the time, what normally happens is as soon as we start to get anxious or upset or angry, we switch to mouth breathing and we start breathing into the chest. And the second that we breathe into the chest and we bring air up here, what we're doing is we're placing physical restriction around that heart chamber. And when we do that, we're giving that heart no choice but boom, 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 to beat harder and faster. Okay? There's probably a lot of light bulbs going off right now. But yeah, so this is what we've been doing during our whole lives, that, you know, we're wondering how do we get out of this panic attack, or how do we get out of anxiety? You know, the only thing we're going to do is we're going to escalate the situation times 50 every time, because we just jacked our heart rate through that roof, you know, every time we breathe up here. So that really is a big piece of it, because I'm sure at one point we've all heard along the way when we've been upset or anxious, someone's told us to calm down and breathe, right? But if that isn't explained how to breathe, then we've been really getting ourselves in some trouble probably. And as we explained, the exhale is our brake pedal, right? So what does that make the gas pedal? That inhale. So that really is what gets us in trouble. We've probably spent a lot of time hammering down on the gas pedal, wondering why we're not getting any calmer when people tell us to breathe and calm down, and now we know, right? So that really is a big important piece, just to slow it down. Nose breathing will keep that off of the chest, smooth breathing, and extend that exhale.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking about how like we were sort of listing all these like external stressors, but just how breathing can almost become a stressor if that heart is constricted. Then you could have this moment where there could be that sense of anxiety just from within.
Yes.
When your heart starts to pound.
And that's so prevalent, Carly. Like whenever, if I'm starting off a group or a conversation and I talk about breath and ask, the thoughts or the first thought that comes up about breathing, majority of the time I would say it is not positive, right? Because of the feedback that what our breath is, it's turned into this confined, this anxious breath. So yeah, you're absolutely right in that line of thinking, and that's kind of where we are in society. So that's what this Breathe First program is all about, is to kind of begin leading with that breath again. When we lead with the breath, your body follows behind, right? That heart, as we proved, and then your brain follows behind that. Breath, body, brain, and they all just coincide one after the other. And that's what we say. As long as you breathe first, your body follows, your brain follows, and that's our 3 B's. And 3 B's equals ROC, the rock. And ROC stands for relaxation on command.
Okay, cool. So would you say like I'm just thinking, so for me, I'm thinking about from my perspective, my son, he is a trickster. He likes to jump out. He likes to hide and startle me. So multiple times in the morning, so I start my day, and even in the evening, I get like a little panic, and I'm always just trying to like immediately switch it to like a smile. So, but I am like, my fight or flight kicks in, and I'm like, I'm startled. So I'm just wondering, like in scenarios like that, and you have like a lot of really great like this 3B and a lot of great phrases, and I just wonder, like when you're trying to coach some people, is it simply as just like having them focus on breathing in through the nose? Like, is that really, like, would you say that's like the first step to sort of like,
that is,
not say snapping us out, but trying to like switch our thoughts, and hopefully that the breath, the body and the breath will follow?
Yes, that is. And so what this takes is, and like what it is, it's restoring our breath to nasal breathing, slowly, lightly, deeply, and there's a lot more to the mechanics in that and the chemistry behind it. But the most important thing we can do is, it's not in the moment. It's not right when that trickster jumps out at you and scares you. That's not when, okay, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to breathe now? But it's when you're thinking about it while you're on your desk at work, throughout the day, at the rest times. Those are the times that you're strengthening that wave. So when that wave's rolling and those moments hit, and we normally would have gone spiked up or spiked down, that wave gets stronger, so it hits those moments and your window of tolerance increases, and you don't trigger up or down from that, but that breath carries you through. So that is the time. That is what this is about. It's restoring our breath throughout the day so we can create our new muscle memory, and then it does turn back to autopilot. It does. So it takes the reminders in the beginning. If it's writing breathe on the back of your hand, or I normally give stickers to people when I'm working in person, and I get them to put them on their light switches, on their water bottle, on their cell phone, on the steering wheel, everywhere you see them. So every time you see it, it reminds you just to lead with that breath again. And then once you get the boulder rolling, then you can, after it, and it doesn't take long, 2-3 weeks, it takes over and it starts rolling, and then it'll keep rolling through the subconscious, and it'll take over through the whole night while you sleep as well. And then, so for sleep apnea or for snoring, that's where this again is very, very helpful and beneficial. Is to keep that circulation through the whole night, so you wake up and you're hitting the ground, and that much more focus and drive the next morning and get a good night's sleep.
That's very cool. So you have breathe stickers that you give people?
I do.
It says,
Yes.
I love that. Okay.
I have it. It's called the Ascending Salmon logo, and an Indigenous artist worked on it with me here on the island, and it's salmon that look like a set of lungs, and I'll maybe have to get that to you so you can see it.
That's beautiful. I have a couple more questions that came in.
Okay.
So this might sort of build off of what you just have gone through, but one of the questions is, when people are frightened or a traumatic physical reflex happens, like their example is slamming on the brakes in your car, which I'm sure happens to everybody so many times, but you breathe in sharply or you do that gasp for air.
Yeah.
And their question is, does mouth breathing trigger anxiety as a reflex to those muscle memories?
Well, I think I hear that question, and mouth breathing induces fight or flight. Nose breathing induces rest and digest. There's a reason we have fight or flight. It's not all bad, right? Fight or flight, a positive stress, which a lot of ceremony, that's what the intent of it. It's to create positive stress, right? If it's an ushum, like a cold spirit bath, or even a sweat lodge, even it's to create that positive stress to put us into that fight or flight. But we're only meant to be in that fight or flight for either a few seconds or a few minutes at a time. That's all our nervous systems were designed for, and then to go back into rest and digest from there. Why fight or flight has got such a bad name is because many of us have been actually stuck in that for a long time in today's day and age. That there's all the focus is on that rest and digest and parasympathetic, but really equanimity of your nervous system and balance is equal parts on both sides of that nervous system, but it has to be us flipping that switch under our control, activating both sides. So I hope that answered that question, that in that moment, a few of those big breaths, right at that second induce, extra oxygen surge, or not oxygen surge, but different endorphins in your body that give you that, that stimulation and create that heightened effect. So yeah.
So it sounds like it's like what this person had sort of asked around, and I'm not sure if this is 100% what they meant, but that muscle memory for mouth breathing, we're going to counteract that by just doing those inhales through our nose. And then even when we're in that moment where we temporarily mouth breathe or inhale, that we'll have that memory that will switch us back into that calm place.
Yeah, it'll go back. And as the more you do it and the more you get down low, and remember, it's not just down low, and it's, think about from the spine out breathing. All right? From the spine out. Every mammal on the planet breathes from the spine out. Like Loki here, who was our volunteer earlier, every mammal on the planet, besides most of us, because we've gotten away from it. Think about, again, that toddler belly breathing, that peaceful breath, that's from the spine out. So it's not just belly, it's sides, it's back, it's all the way around. And think that, and that's a really helpful way for keeping it off the chest and off of that heart and activating the shoulders and all that is unnecessary. That just adds tension and stress throughout the day.
Okay, you have me, honestly, I can't even think of how many times I've already my mind's gone to realizing how I've inhaled through my mouth just during this last hour. I have one more question about exercising. Okay. And what your recommendations would be, like when you're exercising and maybe with your diving, do you recommend breathing through your nose during that time, or is there a place for mouth inhaling when exercising?
I train a lot of elite and professional athletes, and in and out through the nose all the time. And I get a lot of looks when I first say this, but it's true. The only time that I would ever encourage mouth breathing is if I'm training swimmers. And this I do train a lot of swim, but because a lung full of chlorine is not a good idea for anybody, right? So you have to mouth breathe while you're in a swimming pool, but that's a good example. So while those swimmers are in the middle of that stroke, in the middle of that lap that they're doing, they're mouth breathing, but the second they get to the side of the wall, they're recovering through their nose instantly. And so, and marathon runners, hockey players, MMA fighters. I train a lot of national synchronized swimmers. And even then, like that's what opposite, right? They have nose plugs in. They have to because half of the time they're underwater, upside down. But now they're trained that the second they come to the surface, they're trained, the coach gets them to take their nose plugs off so they can immediately go back to nasal breathing and expanding that diaphragm for every second that they're not actually in the middle of it. And it takes some time. And that's fine if you curse my name a little bit along the way, because there's going to be points where it doesn't feel terrific while you're trying to push it and remain to nose breathing, and that's fine. Switch back to mouth breathing, but every day that you try, your body will adapt, your body will buffer, and you'll feel that this is a much more efficient, natural way of doing it, and your body really does kick in a lot quickly. It was actually, this is an Apache technique, and they used to fill their mouths with water before running distances to ensure that they were nasal breathing and maintaining that nasal breath.
Wow. So we've known this for a really long time.
Yes.
And
that's the beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everything, we have the modern science now to come out and all the new research, which is awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And all of this is proving that the elders, the ancestors have been doing it right for a very long time. Really is where we're at with our breath. And it really is so true in so many different ways. So what I do is nothing new at all. The Shimsham word is Swanscom Halite. Swanscom Halite, and it means someone who teaches breath as healing for medicine. And this has been around in communities, through the Nichanus communities out here on it for hundreds of years. So it's nothing new, but it's just something to kind of remind us and bring back to use as a medicine that we always have access to. We don't need a prescription to get more of it, right? It's all around us. And the important thing is to use it. Don't make it a chore. The second you make it a chore, the second you make it breath work, it's out of there. So I don't even like that term breath work. This should be a reward. It should be a treat, because every minute that you do it, you immediately feel better, and you deserve to feel better, so don't feel guilty about it and enjoy it. Use it as a treat.
That's fantastic. So I just want to ask one more thing. So for those of us who this is new, and we want to try to start tomorrow, start tonight, you had said earlier about that like group of threes. Would you recommend like a certain routine? Is it just like, is one breath still really a great start? Or would you maybe encourage a round of three?
You know what?
Yeah.
As needed, really. That we started doing, so I want to make clear, we did two different things. We started doing one specific exercise, right? And that was using the mouth. There's probably some people I thought you said in and out through the nose all the time, which in and out through the nose, that is the 99% of the time or every minute of everyday breathing. But there's a lot of specific exercises that we can do throughout the day, So that one that we did, that eagle breath, that we started doing together, that can be used to check in with yourself. That can be used to, to incorporate calming and grounding. That can be used to connect with yourself. There's lots of uses for that. So what I would say is as needed, but don't overdo it. That's the thing. Trust yourself. Don't overdo it. Less is so much more.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm just going to defer to CJ. Do we have any more questions that came in through the chat?
We do not have any more questions.
Okay. At this moment, I just wanted to address just our community members. I'm hoping that we can post up the survey link for anyone who would like to provide us with some feedback and let us know what they thought about today's knowledge sharing session. And if there's any other questions that anybody would like to type at this moment. I've written pages of notes. This has been really, Really, really cool. Very, very informative. I don't even know where to start with questions for myself. There's so many things that you said about, the first thing I was thinking about when you were talking about that story and like the children and that peaceful breath, that was just so innate, but also that it already had that effect on other people, where just standing with somebody and watching them breathe has that that energy. Like, we have this power to not just affect ourselves, but to help those around us. Even, and like at the beginning, I was saying, like, if you want to share this knowledge, and I'm thinking about that effect, that positive effect about telling stories. But that effect can even, it sounds like, occur just by changing that breath and calming ourselves, that we can have that effect, that positive effect on others around us without even saying a word.
That's right.
I love that. This has been really amazing, Tyler. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carly. Yes, I've enjoyed the talk. Thank you for participating. Thank you, CJ, for participating over there. It's great that you popped in.
Awesome.
And yeah, like I say, just keep that curiosity, and keep that, and that curiosity is just going to grow and grow, and that's what helps really establish this connection. And the more you get connected, the more it kind of, you get to hear your story again, and the brighter that light gets inside you. And as that light grows, it gets brighter as you use this breath to create self-awareness, right? With self-awareness comes self-confidence, self-worth, and self-love. That's why we call it eagle breath, because that's the teaching, right? It's that self-love that it does bring to you as you connect with yourself and brighten that light inside.
Very nice. I have one more question. It's a personal question for you, though. I'm really interested in what you said about sleep and like improving that quality of sleep. For you, how quickly did you find that once you started utilizing this breath, that you found like your sleep was better? Like, or is it a couple days, or?
It can be in the moment. It really is all over the place.
Okay.
And I know my wife is much better than I am, because she falls asleep still like that. But it really is. And so before bed, and this does happen quite quickly, but really focus on the slowly, lightly, deeply side of it, okay? And the less is more, because what I mean by that, as you reduce the amount of air that you're bringing in, as you slow that breath down, you're actually delivering and absorbing more oxygen in your body. It's opposite of what we've been taught our whole lives. As we take big breaths, all we're doing is actually suffocating ourselves. The more we bring in, that's what that lightheaded feeling is. When we overbreathe, that's how quickly it actually closes off the airways, closes off the vessels, and stops absorption of oxygen into our body. So it's opposite. So less is more. And the more you can quiet, the more you can soften that breath before you fall asleep, you're going to create more oxygen circulation to the brain cells. And that's what removes any of that neural excitability that keeps us up at night. That keeps us from tossing and turning, and that head running away and thinking about everything. So just in that point, you're thinking about the slowed breathing, slowly, lightly, deeply. Less is more. And remember, lead with the breath, the body will follow, and the brain will follow behind that.
Thank you so much. I have like so many thoughts right now. This is really great. I'm really hoping that some people out there will try this. I wanted to also let those listening in and tuning in know that any questions or any comments they put in the chat, we will do our best to bring them to you, Tyler. If there's anybody who has anything else that they felt like maybe that curiosity is sparked and they have some other questions. We've also posted in our grab bag like links to your website if anybody wanted to look into breath first and breath control a little bit more after this.
Great. And yeah, I just want to encourage any questions at all, please send them in through the website. That's a way that gets directly to me. So any thoughts or any questions, I'd love to hear from you. I'm always happy to chat.
Okay. Thank you so much again.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Happy holidays. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.